Welcome to Language Thieves, a new radio programme about the origins of the English language. With me in the studio is Josie Lowther from the Linguistics Department at Oxford University and Georgia Gould from Tynemouth College. Professor Lowther will be supporting the notion that most of our modern language is derived from Latin, and Georgia will be arguing against it, that it's mostly French. Welcome. So Josie, you work in the Linguistics Department at Oxford and you're the author of the 7-part novel Why Latin is My Hobby. Tell me, what was the inspiration for your book?
Well, really, for me, it's just Latin. It's such a beautifully crafted language, and I wrote the books to try and bring it back. I've heard that Latin is becoming actually pretty cool, even though many say it's a forgotten language.
That sounds very interesting. And you, Georgia, you're in the second year at Tynemouth College. Are you studying English?
Well, I'm just doing BTEC electronics, and my friend signed me up for the show.
Ah, right, great. Sounds like you really know your stuff. Before we begin, we have prepared a brief history of our language for the listeners at home. The first English language you know about in the British Isles belongs to the Celts in 600 BC. This would have been similar to the Gaelic that the Scots and the Welsh speak today. A few words have survived from the Celtic times, for example corgi, meaning little dog, and whisky, which translates to water of life. In 55 BC, Britain was invaded by the Romans who spoke Latin. Romans named many places in Britain by using their word Chester, meaning camp. In the year 450, the Anglo-Saxons made their way to our shores and started to shape the language we know today. Everyday words such as cow, house, bread and sword came from the Anglo-Saxons. From 800 onwards, the Vikings ruled the land. They came from Denmark and Norway, and the language eventually turned into Norwegian and Danish that we know today. They also contributed words to English such as anger, husband and law. In 1066, the Normans invaded with the great William the Conqueror. They spoke the early version of French and it became the high status language for the Britons. With no more invasions of England, and gradually the English language fought back over French, this was known as the Middle English stage, and famous authors such as Chaucer wrote in this period. Even though no more armies were invading, words still did, with printing press invented in 1476. Reading Latin and Greek books became popular and people started to steal some of the words from there. The final main contributor to our language is William Shakespeare. He was believed to invent many words such as eyeball and ale. Okay, well now we can begin our debate. We're going to flip a coin to see who goes first, and then you have 30 seconds to convince me that you're the winner. Okay, so what do you want?
Heads.
Heads it is. Georgia, you go first.
In 1066, the Norman invasion of England had a major impact on the English language. Norman French was brought to England by William the Conqueror and his band of Normans. This became the language of the court, government and the upper class for the next 3 centuries. In fact, more than 10,000 French words found their way into the English language, words associated with government, food, art and many other aspects of life.
I have to admit, that is considerably more convincing than I thought it would. Okay, so Professor Lowther, time for you to take the MIC.
Latin influence in English has been significant in all stages of its development and has made the most intellectual contributions. For example, the vocabulary of a preschool child is predominantly native English words, whereas many of the most common polysyllabic English words are of Latin origin. From as early as the 6th century, St. Augustine of Canterbury used Latin elements in ecclesiastical scriptures. Then, between the 16th and 18th century, English writers created many new words from Latin, known as inkhorn terms, as if they had been spilled from a pot of ink, including imbibe and extrapolate. Due to the influence of Roman governance and technology, many nations, including our own, adopted Latin phraseology in specialised areas like science, technology, medicine and law.
At the minute, it's pretty close. Before we begin round 2, we caught up with the public and asked them what they thought they got most of their words from. Okay, Alice. Out of Latin, French and Shakespearean, which one do you think contributed the most to the modern day English language?
Shakespearean.
And Erin?
Wait, what was the options?
Latin, French and Shakespearean.
Latin.
Thank you, Erin.
Shakespearean.
Why?
Because he came up with loads of them random words and me and like none of the audience knew. I don't know an example.
French.
Why?
Because they're like close to us, and in the olden days,
Very, very logical.
thank you. And in the olden days, we were like friends.
What percentage of the modern English language do you think is French?
65. 70.
10.
10. How much percent do you think is Latin?
10. What? What's the question? Like 5.
2.
It's over 60%.
No way.
Bestiality.
What? Bestiality.
Bestiality. I know.
What is it? Bestiality. Bestiality.
Bestiality.
Not English.
Latin.
Who?
Are you recording this?
Yeah.
Alright. French.
Latin.
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 Right, now it's time for round 2. Georgia, are you ready with your counter argument? Good. Okay then, go.
Today, more than 1/3 of all English words are derived directly or indirectly from French, and it's estimated that English speakers who have never even studied French already know about 15,000 French words. 29% of the English language is made up of French words, but 45% of all English words have a French origin.
Alright, well, Josie, it's time for your side of the argument, so let us hear it.
Far from being a dead language, Latin is alive, well, and will be found in a phrase near you. From the bottom of my heart translates from ab imo pectore, attributed to Julius Caesar and meaning from the deepest chest. Absit inuria verbis translates to let injury be absent from these words, or more modernly, no offence. And one might think the well-known initialism RIP just means rest in peace, when in fact we're back to Latin again with requiescat in pace.
That's very convincing, but as usual we're going to let our listeners at home decide who won. That's all from us. Good night.